And hello again from WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm Josh Manning, Deputy Managing Editor for the Western Journal. Joining me on the show today, Abby Liebing, a reporter for the Western Journal, and Joey Chester, an assignment editor for the Western Journal. Surprise, surprise. Thank you all for joining us on this. This be the penultimate week before Christmas, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I think you're right.
That's the second to last week before Christmas. We are thrilled to have you here today. As normal, we are bringing you three different topics. These are three very different topics today. We are going to be talking about our good friend Kamala Harris and just what a hard job she has. She's been talking about that, and we want you all to understand and to be able to sympathize with Kamala Harris and the really tough job that she has. You won't believe what she had to say about that. Joey's going to be bringing us that. After that, Abby's going to be talking about a new proposal in New York City that would provide the vote to non-citizens. I think that promises to be a really interesting discussion here with the panel. But first, I want to talk with you about a couple of things COVID related. First off, Omicron is out there. It is stalking the streets, if you're to believe the media.
But it doesn't come out after the curfews.
But it doesn't come out after the curfews. And again, if you're protesting racial injustice, you're perfectly safe from all strands of COVID.
Never forget.
All strands of anything.
Completely, yes, completely. You're very safe. Unless you are a child molester chasing Kyle Rittenhouse, in which case you're not nearly as safe. Anyway, new information coming out. This is from Oxford. The study has not been peer reviewed yet, so take it with a grain of salt. But what they have found, this is coming from The Hill, what they have found is that they released this Monday today, that 2-dose COVID-19 vaccines generate a lower antibody response against the Omicron strain. That suggests that the variant could lead to more infections among the fully vaccinated and previously infected. Now, the scientists go on to say that doesn't indicate that the variant could lead to more cases among those vaccinated with 2 doses. And the takeaway from this, as far as the scientists go, is that, well, folks, we may need yet another booster. And I hear that, and forgive me for being cynical, but the first thing I think when I hear another booster is the same thing that I think when I'm listening to Christmas music on the radio in the morning and a commercial comes on about the vaccine from Pfizer. It just seems like it's all about the money, Joey.
Oh, I completely think it's about the money. It's a brilliant business idea if you think about it, because it means you have to get a new shot every single year, which is guaranteed revenue for these big pharma companies every single year. So I think money plays a big role in it, honestly.
I mean, it's safe to assume that anywhere that big pharma is concerned, it's about money. I mean, sure, they may be doing life-saving drugs for us, but they're also a phenomenally wealthy company that needs to make money and turn a profit.
They have boards they have to answer to.
Exactly. They have investors that are, it's this whole corporation that they have to run,
So go ahead.
Isn't one of the big CDC guys or FDA guys the former Pfizer CEO, or vice versa? It's one of those. Or one, there's a ton of ties,
FDA
right?
Heads.
Yeah,
I think
almost everybody at the FDA, the CDC, I mean, like anything governmental has at least ties with Pfizer and BioNTech, and basically anybody.
Right.
Has at least ties.
and one of the reasons for that is that giant corporations, they want people who have government connections because they want to make it easier to sell their products, get rid of red tape and those things. That's why lobbyists go after people leave the Hill. They go and become lobbyists for different companies, different organizations because of this exact thing. So it's when we talk about kind of crony capitalism, this is the kind of thing I envision.
Well, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, so when I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, okay, they want to sell as many vaccines as possible. That means they want to make it as easy as possible to get the vaccine on the market, and they want to push the vaccine as hard as possible. if I were on Pfizer's board and I wanted that to happen, I would be looking for as many people who used to work for the government as possible. Exactly. Wouldn't you?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I feel like that's just an absolute no-brainer. And they're not going to be hard to find because if you're not involved with Pfizer, you know, as a board member or something like that, if you're smart, you're invested in Pfizer. So it's a good win-win move.
Yeah. And your point that they make drugs that help us, that protect us, that save lives. Yeah. We're all pro pharmacy. I'm not sure how pro big pharma I am. And the way pharma becomes big is by a few companies figuring out how to navigate the red tape and the government and get special favors. And then they raise the barrier for entry so high that new labs can't get in.
Right. Well, it's actually a cartel effect economically. They have created a cartel. You know, everyone just thinks of that as, you know, like, ooh, bad.
Drug lords,
but economically, what big pharma has done, big tech, anything that has kind of monopolized the economy with a couple big companies has created a cartel.
I also think, I mean, I have a few reasons for having questions about the COVID vaccine, but I think this is part of my reasoning for having reservations about it is the ties between the CDC, FDA, and big pharma. Like, there are incentives for these companies to get these vaccines approved as quick as possible. And when this much money is involved and they just want to keep making a bigger and bigger profit, I have to wonder, well, you know, is the vaccine really as great as they make it sound? I don't know.
So here's a chilling thought. Conservative and libertarians' problem with the FDA for the longest time was the drugs they're saying no to that could be efficacious. It makes more sense to say no and prevent potential deaths than it does to risk potential deaths for maybe a giant upside.
Right.
This is the first time that has reversed.
That's a good point.
Could this
I never
be?
thought of that.
Yeah. So think about it. Now they've got a taste for it. They've wet their beaks, as it were, for the first time. The incentive for pharmacy to get the government to push mandated vaccines, mandated antibodies, mandated medications, that incentive is going to be enormous going forward. Because what happens when COVID finally comes under control? If it does, what happens? All of a sudden, I mean, your boards have gotten used to enormous profits from vaccines, so you got to push something else, right?
Something. Yeah.
All right, quickly to the other piece I have right here. So some hospitals are now dropping the COVID-19 vaccine mandate. Imagine that. Now, one of the things that was predicted going into this and that was predicted on this very stage and to you very wonderful people was that essentially if the vaccine mandates went into effect in healthcare, that it was going to wildly exacerbate issues with COVID because you had a massive number of people who didn't want to get the vaccine. Seemingly, and it felt like it was a disproportionate figure among healthcare workers. So what is interesting is with federal judges putting the vaccine mandate on hold, you're now seeing hospitals doing the same thing. And I'm pulling this from the Wall Street Journal. Hospital operators, including HCA Healthcare and Tenet Healthcare, as well as nonprofits Advent Health and Cleveland Clinics, are dropping the mandates. Labor costs in the industry have soared, and hospitals struggled to retain enough nurses, technicians, and even janitors to handle higher hospitalizations in recent months as the Delta variant raged. Now, if you drop down in the article a little bit more, we find out thousands of nurses have left the industry or lost their jobs rather than get vaccinated. As of September, 30% of workers at more than 2,000 hospitals across the country surveyed by the CDC and Prevention, for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, were unvaccinated. Abby, is this surprising that we are seeing hospitals, now that they have an out, backing off of this big time?
No, not at all. Again, I mean, everyone would love to see hospitals as, you know, the loving caretakers and, you know, Grey's Anatomy heroes. But at the end of the day, hospitals are businesses. And they're extraordinarily expensive businesses to run. And so you have to be smart about your staff and about your costs, which means if all of a sudden you're having nursing shortages, which means, you know, you're cutting surgeries. And that's costing you money. And so what are you going to do? Oh, we're going to back off a little bit because you have to do what's going to keep the hospital profitable and running. You don't want hospitals closing down. Real bad look.
That's a great point. My wife, we talked about this last week. I was sharing with you guys some of what my wife has been through with back issues. She's had surgery on her back before. We were able to do it, I think, about 2 weeks after figuring out what she needed. Last time, this was back in 19. This time, it's taking about 2.5 months.
Wow. Oh, gosh.
I mean, that's remarkable. That is remarkable. And they called the other day and moved it out another month. Yeah, and it's not it is a complicated thing. There is a hospital stay involved, but this is not, it's not like she's getting a transplant or something. They're just fusing a couple of vertebrae. So, Joey, does this just super quickly, does this indicate what happens? Does this indicate that without Biden's mandate, the American people really aren't that interested in this?
I think so. I really think that without the mandates, I mean, I think just COVID in general would not be as big of a topic as it is now. People would just be going about their daily lives. Businesses would be functioning. We would have never had to deal with nurses and doctors quitting. I think the mandates played a huge role in it. It would not be on Americans' minds like it is today without the mandates. No doubt.
Doubtless COVID and the mandates have made life more difficult for all of us. One person whose life has been just extraordinarily difficult lately, if you talk to her, is Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was bemoaning this recently, though she has not really gone to the border. You can argue
she went to Europe.
She got close to the border, folks, but she didn't quite make it there. She did manage to go to Europe. She did manage to go to Europe, but she apparently is having a really rough time, and nobody appreciates the difficulty. Joey, help us appreciate Kamala's plight.
Kamala Harris wants all of us to feel really bad for her. She wants us to pity her. Poor Kamala Harris. Her job is so difficult. We just don't understand. No one in the media, us, we don't understand. No Americans understand just how difficult it is to be vice president. Apparently, that's what she says. That's what she's blaming her low approval ratings on, the bad media coverage on. She's just saying, oh, you know what? My job's really hard. No one understands. She says, nothing comes across my desk unless other people haven't been able to figure it out, which... I'm not even quite sure what the vice president's supposed to be dealing with anyways. I don't know what problem. I mean, what is she talking about?
Nuclear fusion?
Yeah.
She is
space travel.
She is the smartest
when
person.
Elon can't figure something out, he sends it to Kamala's desk?
What kind of comment is that?
Seriously?
Like, only the hardest problems come to me.
Is a gutsy comment.
Yes. Yes. So, and we just don't understand. And so we were talking in the office this morning. We're like, well, what has Kamala Harris accomplished? I mean, it has been in January. It'll be a year somehow that they've been in office. So I want you guys to attempt to answer the question. What accomplishments has Kamala Harris had?
You did not warn us of this ahead of the show.
What does she even do all day? Please,
I have no clue. The only thing I can think of is that she went to Europe. And then the other thing that popped into my head is there was an old Twitter account that was just called did Kamala Harris go to the border today? And every day they would post and say, no, she didn't.
So she hasn't. So she made one Twitter account irrelevant. No, she hadn't even done that because she hadn't been yet. There's no posting.
And that's the only things I could think of when you asked. I was like, well, that's it.
So I took a different approach. Abby, having the steel trap mind that she has, went back in there to see if she had any nuggets stored away. I don't have a steel trap mind. I forget things as soon as I read or hear them. So I went to social media and I posted asking, and I said exactly what it was. Guys, we're working on a piece about Kamala Harris. We're trying to come up with anything that she has accomplished over the last year. Could you help me out? And I posted it specifically to my friends on the left. I have an enormous number of friends on the left from grad school. Not a peep, guys, not a peep. Now, if I make a comment about Donald Trump or illegal immigration or something like that, now, man, those guys love to pile on. Yeah. They
go crazy.
Yeah, pile on Josh. But if you ask a specific question, and it wasn't baited, I wasn't trying to mess with them. It was just an honest question. Hey, guys, I can't come up with it. Nobody but nobody came up with anything she's done.
Nothing. I mean, all I can think of she does all day, she lobbies for legislation, I guess.
Like a senator would.
Yes, she serves as a tiebreaker, so she might as well just stay a senator.
Less
she probably
than
would
a
have accomplished
senator would do.
more. Yes. So it's just strange to me, and I think it shows that. Oh, go ahead. What are you saying?
Go ahead. I have a question.
Well, I think it shows that Biden really did choose her for reasons that weren't her resume.
Yeah, not meritocracy.
Yes. And I think it also is reflective in her approval ratings and her polling numbers for 2024. Like, no one realizes that she's done anything because she hasn't done anything. Like, that is, Americans are seeing that. So it's just
No, go ahead.
The whole argument for her being vice president has always been, she's being primed for the presidency if Biden doesn't run again.
What is she going to campaign on?
But what is she? Because everyone knows.
Really?
Seriously. In general, senators do more work than
Yes.
vice presidents, just in general. In this specific instance, it's never been clearer.
Yes.
I don't know what she has done other than whine. And I think one of the reasons we haven't seen a whole lot out of her is that she sort of comes across either whiny,
Yes.
or and get on. I'm not trying to be personal. This is me stepping back from that. This is more as an analyst. Or she has that horrific laugh that
Cackle.
it is just grating. I mean, there's no other way to say it. If I were advising a candidate who said that, I would advise them to smile a lot. I would probably advise them not to laugh.
Well, she laughs in situations where she shouldn't laugh. In very tragic situations. Like it's never a good time that she laughs.
That's right.
She seems to burst out laughing in the worst situations possible.
Now, there is potentially an explanation for this. Could it be, Abby, that she is still so exhausted from putting black people in prison
I mean, she
just hasn't recovered from it?
That's what she'll run on.
Before this.
It was a full career for her.
I mean, how do you just not get completely depleted after that?
I don't know. Maybe she's just a husk
That's going to be
of
her
herself.
2024 campaign.
But that's and look, don't fall for that either, folks. I mean, there's all of this. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in 2024 because a lot of people, and conservatives are biting on this too, talking about how people like Harris, oh my gosh, look at how many black people they imprisoned. Look at how disproportionate and racist it appears to be. But make no mistake, that's being tied in on the left with attempts to defund police and to get prosecutors to not prosecute. If you look at Biden's, it's his nominee for U.S. federal prosecutor in Washington. I can't remember.
Oh no, it's I think it's on the East Coast somewhere.
You know who I'm talking about.
She's terrible.
Yeah. She has run on not prosecuting people for misdemeanors.
Yes.
The kind of stuff we see happening in San Francisco and in L.A., where people are in and out of stores taking stuff. She is clearly for that.
Yeah.
She says, I don't prosecute those things. So
what do you do? What's your job then?
All of this is tied in toward a general de-emphasis on law enforcement and law and order. Mm-hmm. Anything else to say on Kamala?
I just that I think that we're tired of hearing this sob story from Kamala Harris. Like, aren't we all supposed to be proud of her because she's the first woman vice president and she's a woman of color, and we should just be praising her on our hands and knees.
We're not done quite yet.
But she wants us to feel bad for her at the same time. We don't understand. I don't get it. What does she want?
So this is the sick, insidious nature of tokenism. Isn't it a shame that the first female black vice president is utterly incompetent?
Yes, a complete disaster.
I mean, what does that telegraph to people who aren't thinking, and the vast majority of the electorate isn't, to people who aren't thinking, what does that telegraph? Well, it looks a heck of a lot to me like, oh gosh, well, we took our chance on a black female and she was terrible. Should we do that again? It's terrible.
And what does that say about Biden?
Really awful.
Yeah, it's horrible.
You're a woman.
I'm a woman. Yeah. Listen, I mean, I think anybody can say, it's a positive thing. It's about time that, that there was a female, black vice president. I think it's great. Just one that
I just wish you were good.
Yes.
I wish you were good.
I wish you did something.
Yeah.
It was like we said, okay, it's time to admit someone to Harvard from a race who had never been there. And there are all sorts of brilliant people in this race and talented people. And we took an idiot and stuck him in there and said, see, here's the first one. Celebrate. That is not, Kamala's not something to celebrate.
And then they say, oh, look how hard it is.
She's an embarrassment
to
women. She's an embarrassment to African Americans. She's an embarrassment to former prosecutors. She's what other constituency is she? She's an embarrassment to Democrats.
I mean,
clearly, the polling shows that.
To everything. I know. In every demographic, it's like, everyone is so sucked into identity politics.
Yes.
And I'm like, you lost. You lost identity politics here. And it should have been a win. It should have been a win.
It proves identity politics is just a mess.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. All right. Good discussion. So from COVID and Kamala now to non-citizens voting.
To New York
really
City.
Interesting proposal up in
boy.
New York City. And folks, brace yourselves. We've got different opinions on each side of the table.
We've got
This is going to be
opposite
really
spectrums.
interesting.
Like, really.
So nothing personal here.
No.
Let's.
We're just discussing a policy.
That's-
Just a policy.
I'll intervene if
You're not going to join in?
I'll try to moderate.
Moderate.
I'll try to moderate, and if physical contact gets to be too much, if there's too much physical contact, I'll step in. But Abby, tell us what's going on over there, and then we want to know your take on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So just the broad framework of what's going on. This is New York City specifically. It is not New York State. So the city council proposed that non-citizens in New York City should be allowed to vote in local elections. So such as city councilmen and particularly school board elections are a big sticking point with this. They did clarify though, it's not just any non-citizen, specifically green card holders and those who have, permission to work in the United States. So actual documentation, even if they aren't a citizen. So those are the two categories, which would allow, let me look. It would be about 800,000 non-citizens in New York who would then be free to vote. And to be clear, a big driving factor behind this is that these people are taxpayers. So if you have a work permit as an immigrant, and if you're a green card holder, you pay taxes in New York City. But the argument is that these people, if you're from Guatemala and you're paying your taxes and you have a green card and your kid is in public school, your kid is a U.S. citizen, you're not allowed to vote for the school board members in your district, for example.
That's interesting.
And so the New York City Council has a large pretty large majority in favor of going ahead and allowing these non-citizens to vote, which could take effect as early as 2023, beginning of 2023. But there's also a lot of argument, like, does this devalue the idea of citizenship? How is this going to kind of mess with the demographics of New York City? And just the strict legality of, can a city council decide to do this? Is it legal for them to say that non-citizens can all of a sudden vote in their city? So controversially, I am in favor of this actually. Because there's nothing in the New York State Constitution that expressly disallows non-citizens to vote. And so this is a state constitution issue, not a federal constitution issue. And I think that you're seeing, these are taxpayers. If you look at the statistics, immigrants are a majority of the workforce in New York City, a majority of the essential workforce in the city. And I'm like, yeah, give them say in their own city politics so that, they can say who's in their school boards. Things like picking up trash in their neighborhoods. I mean, all of those little things that play out in their actual neighborhoods, where they live, where their kids go to school. I say absolutely give them the right to vote.
Abby, you ignorant Marxist.
Took the words out of my
what
mouth.
Do you say? No, I think it's very well articulated.
Well, thank you.
And I'm going to have just some questions here, but I'd like to hear what you think, Joey.
There are two parts of me on this. One is something I've said for a while. You've heard me say it, that let's just let the liberal cities and states in America do whatever they want. Let's let them destroy their cities. Let them allow non-citizens to vote. Let them do it. Let them live in their liberal hellhole and let them do whatever they want. I don't care. So there's part of me that thinks that, sure, let's let
Joey
the non-citizens vote.
Okay.
No, it seems like
laboratories of democracy.
No, seriously,
even if they're hellholes.
I do not like. If you want to let them vote in your cities, fine. That's one side of me. Not that I completely support that, but that's just one way of my thinking. Is well, we'll just live in our red states how we want to live and choose to live, and let's let the liberals live in the terrible places that they want to live. And it's fine. They can do whatever they want. But the other part of me thinks that voting is a really important thing. It's an important right. It's an important privilege that we're granted as Americans. And there has to be some sort of process that you go through to be afforded that right. I think even at a city level, even if we're not dealing with federal elections, even if they are green card holders, they're paying taxes, they're still not citizens of the United States. And I don't think that they should have any say in the way things are governed, even in whatever city they live in. I also see this as problematic because, as we always say with the left, like you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. So it starts at city elections in New York with non-citizens voting. And then they say, well, you know what, let's do something where we allow them to vote in federal elections. And then you see cities like Phoenix in a swing state where there's hundreds of thousands of, I'm sure, green card holders, illegal immigrants that live here. And then they vote and it could sway elections to the left forever. It could make Arizona a permanent blue state. Like, dude, those people haven't gone through the process of being American citizens. They shouldn't vote, even if it's in city elections. So I just don't think that if you're not an American, you don't get to vote. That's what I think.
Okay. I understand that. But I mean, to use the age-old argument, what did you do to become a citizen?
I was born here.
You were just born here.
Exactly.
So
I didn't break any laws. I didn't do anything.
So then it comes down to idea of what are the virtues of citizenship, and what does that really have to entail? What do you have to do to be a citizen in order to vote? Because these people are doing pretty much everything you do. They pay taxes. They work. Actually, a lot of them may even work more than you.
Or at least an enormous percentage of the Democrat electorate.
But they weren't born here. So a lot of people would say that's pretty discriminatory.
Well, yeah, it's purposely discriminatory. There's a difference between American citizens and people who are not American citizens. Like, yes, you have to have some form of formal discrimination between these two groups.
So is the idea of citizenship itself discriminatory?
Should we have global citizenship? No borders?
I mean, I don't know.
Where do we draw the line?
It's a legitimate question.
The Marxist
it's not clear to me. Well, no, it's not clear to me that the answer is, citizenship isn't discriminatory. I think citizenship probably, it definitionally is discriminatory. I don't know that's necessarily bad.
Like I think
it's not necessarily bad.
I think the citizenship process should be as long and drawn out and difficult as possible. You need to prove that you care about the country. You want to be an American. What's that?
So do you think then that you're a citizen by virtue of your birth?
Yes.
Do you
partially,
think then that people that there should be some sort of a citizenship test that should be administered even to children birthed by Americans and non-American soil?
Because there's a lot of citizens.
So, all right, you're automatically a citizen because you were born on U.S. soil. You have American parents or United States citizen parents. In the future, should people born in the state you were born in the way you were born, should they have to pass a test to become citizens?
No, that wouldn't make sense because you're growing up in the value system of the United States. Your parents are American.
What
they
value system does the United States
Western
have for citizenship?
Well, I mean, I think just generally living in the United States, you adhere to some sort of value system that I think you need to learn. Cultural identities you need to learn if you're going to immigrate here. And I think that's part of why the long and drawn out process is important, because you need to learn to assimilate and become like an American. We're not a country that can live with 40, 50, hundreds of different cultures in it that all act differently with different values.
Yeah, that is incredibly hard.
It's hard, but that's literally the foundation of American principles.
Yes.
Is that we are not an ethnic nation.
No, I'm not saying that.
We are not founded on some sort of national identity.
Then we disagree on that.
We are founded on philosophical principles.
But ethnicity and culture aren't the same thing.
Yeah,
not necessarily.
I'm
but
not
a lot
saying
of times they go hand in hand.
I'm not saying like a nation of white people. That's not what I'm saying.
I'm not even saying
I don't want that.
No. And I'm not saying ethnicity just happens to be something that often walks hand in hand with culture.
I get that. Okay.
I'm not saying it's exclusive, but what I am saying is that the American founding principles are philosophical. They are not identity. They are not cultural identity. They are philosophical identities. And so any immigrant from anywhere in the world can hold the same philosophical principles as an American.
I mean, yes, right. You can come immigrate here and you can assimilate and you can adhere to the Western value system and the Constitution and the values that we have as Americans. You can't come from like a Middle Eastern country and adhere to Sharia law in America and think that that's okay. We can't allow that in America. We just can't. You can't live with hundreds of different cultures that put value on different things and believe in different laws and types of things. That's how you end up with people killing each other. It doesn't work.
What do you think, Abby, what do you think the unifying trait is then if we have lots of different cultures, people representing lots of different cultures here? What is the thing that unifies? So two questions. Normatively, what's the thing that unifies us? What's the thing that should unify all of us into one? And then more realistically, is there something unifying us as one right now?
Ooh, the second one. That's such a tricky question. Okay.
Right now, yeah.
Very broadly, what unifies us is the belief in individual right, human rights, and self-government. That is exceptional in history, and it is exceptional to the American identity.
Sure.
And so I would say that is the overall overarching unifying system of ideas. As far as what unifies us right now, I'm not sure there really is anything, because what we're seeing right now in our culture is a specific targeting and deterioration of what I just said our principles were.
The glue is being eroded.
Yeah, exactly. The glue that held everything together, that the glue that you can take a lot of varying cultures and practices, however you want to articulate that glue, that one thing that can hold a lot of different things together, is all of a sudden being eroded.
I've got a question for you. So I just thought of it as we were sitting here. So do you think it's okay for someone to immigrate here who wants to tear down the American system? Someone who explicitly comes here says, I want to immigrate to America and I want to tear down, I want to get rid of the Constitution. I'm not going to adhere to it. I hate America, but I want to be a citizen and immigrate to America. Can we coexist like that?
Frankly, I think Ilhan Omar is already here, and I don't know if we can get rid.
That's why I'm in favor of a 10-year ban on all immigration. Legal and illegal.
Lord.
Oh my!
Yeah,
that is. I'm going to just go ahead and say that's a bit immoral.
I don't think so. We can't.
We only have like 2 minutes more. That's a huge statement. We're only 2 minutes.
We're full. We can't take any more of you. We have Americans we need to take care of. Yes, we're full. How many homeless people do you think I see driving on the street on my way to work every day that we need to take care of before we can take care of people from around the world?
Agreed.
Who should we take care of first? Americans first, or illegal
I'm not sure.
immigrants?
Go ask how many homeless people are there out of choice. Some of them are, a significant amount of them are. Do not be fooled by the homeless people.
By
guys.
choice?
Oh yeah, no, I would agree. I would agree.
Oh yeah, by choice.
I would agree with that.
Okay, I wouldn't, but okay.
Well, depending on whether addiction is whether drug addiction is considered a choice or not.
Which is a completely different ethical question.
I don't think it is. But
well, hey, all right. Let me pause this. We're about to run out of time. I want to ask one more question though. That's just I was curious about this from the very beginning. What New York's thinking about doing is interesting. The fascinating thing about it to me is that this could be a Pandora's box for for liberals, at least on the local level.
It's definitely a slippery slope.
Well, yeah, and it is for I don't know if they know what they're asking for, because the vast majority of working class immigrants I meet are hardworking people who have kids, want their kids to be educated well,
course.
are interested in going to church.
Yeah.
So I wonder, you've got potentially liberals pushing this as like, oh yeah, we should totally do this. I wonder if it's going to backfire on them.
Well, because if you look at a lot of immigrants that do come to America, they're coming from other oppressive regimes. That is why they come here. And so they're going to push back against what they see as oppression, which is often what's in line with the progressive agenda. I have a friend who his dad's from Chile, grew up under Pinochet. And he's like, of course I support Trump and generally Republican values, because the other side is what I saw under Pinochet when I was growing up. It's like, and that is a surprising amount of immigrants.
So the place I saw this playing out is, can you imagine watching the school board meetings we've watched over the last few months in Loudoun, and is the other one, King? I can't remember where
all the Virginia.
Like every liberal county.
Imagine if all of the, just to pick a country, all of the Mexican immigrants in those counties were voting in those elections. I don't see a lot of Mexican immigrants voting in favor of gay pornography in libraries.
No.
Yet the left absolutely loves stuff like that. So I wonder if they don't, I wonder if they're not thinking this all the way through.
They're not.
Got time for one more comment from each, and I don't care who goes.
For me, it's not an issue of like, oh, which way would they vote? It's more fundamental and principled than that. It's just the fact that if you are not yet a citizen of the United States, you should not get to vote in any election. It has nothing to do with the politics or my respect for the people. It's just simply, I believe in process, and you have to work as hard as you can to become an immigrant and prove yourself first. Become a citizen. Sorry.
I can understand that. I can even get on board with saying only citizens vote, but my addendum to that would be then to change the process of citizenship. I do not agree with you that it should take years and years and years, because I frankly think that a lot of immigrants that are coming from all over the world have more American values than most Americans.
That's a good point. That's a good point to end on. As you folks are watching, I hope you've been commenting. If you haven't, in the last little bit, leave a comment or two. We'd love to hear what you think about this. I really wish I had started the segment saying that, because I would love to hear what the audience thinks about this.
Yeah.
Chime in.
Yes,
still got time.
All right, so that is it for us today, folks. Ending a little bit late, but on I think a pretty good debate. Joey, thank you for being here. Abby, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That is it for us. We will be back Wednesday. Remember, we're here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. If you're watching online, be sure to click the subscribe button. After that, a little bell will come up. You can click that, and that's going to make sure that you get notified when we go live, so you won't miss any more scintillating discussions like this one. Also, I've shared this with you guys before. As you hopefully know, what we do is not cheap. God provides for us on a daily basis. I'm fond of saying that he really does kind of provide manna for us. One of the ways he does that, though, is with people who come alongside and partner with us to support the work that we do. If you feel led to do that, don't let me guilt you into it, but if you happen to feel led to do that, you can go to westernjournal.com/join, westernjournal.com/join. There's some options there for you to join with us and support our fight back against the left and for Christian, conservative, and American values. Those aren't always the same thing, and the Christian values come out first.
True.
Those are the ones we stand behind strongest. If you can't do that, if you don't feel led to do that, no big deal, but I will guilt you into keeping on watching us and reading articles over at westernjournal.com. You will run into great stuff written by the lovely Abby Liebing. You will run into a ton of stories put together by the wonderful Joey Chester. And you'll probably never see my name on there, and that's perfectly fine. That's good. That's good. All right, for these guys, for everybody in the booth, I'm Josh Manning.